All right, welcome. It is Wednesday, March the 26th. I believe exactly 1 month from draft day. And who is the best guy to be talking to around the draft time? Brad Graham is in the house, and we're going to do a little dual stream, a little mock draft. Not what we would do, but what the Niners will do. It's all straight ahead. It's the Krueger Show meets the Brad Graham experience. It's going to be awesome. Join us right now. Off and running, bright and early for me, 10 a.m. on the West Coast. Kev's like, get up earlier, work harder, do more. All right. I'm up. We're doing a mock draft today, a month before the NFL draft with Brad Graham. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early. Get some brisket. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Tell them that Krug sent you. And the show is sponsored by LearnKey's Upskill Academy, an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. And it doesn't matter what field you're interested in. Could be IT, cybersecurity, marketing, could be another high-demand field. They offer over 30 different certification programs. They help you take the next step in your professional career. They've been in business for 37 years, have over 200,000 students that they've worked with, and they place over 100 graduates into good-paying jobs every month. So check them out. The links are in the description below. LearnKey Upskill Academy. If you're either out of a job, between jobs, not doing the job that you want to do, we're all always here to further the cause of our audience. So check it out, guys. It could be for you, and it could be something that really helps you make a few more dollars in the future, and I'm all about helping my audience make more money. All right, on that note, let's talk nothing but Niners with Brad Graham. Brad, good to see you, man. How are you?
Larry, doing well. Excited to get back into the saddle and talk draft with you, especially with a little dueling mock, or I guess a combined mock, I should say. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it, and it's always good streaming with you, my guy.
Oh, dude, it's and this is like your travel time, man. The Super Bowl happens, and usually head to the Super Bowl. Then it's the combine, or then it's the Senior Bowl. Then it's the combine. What have you gleaned from being out on the road and getting a chance to kind of face up some of the prospects? We had Chandler Martin on yesterday from Memphis, and I love that prospect. I think he's a tremendous linebacker prospect. But I think there's something when you get out of your, shell, cocoon, studio, whatever we want, and get out to the Super Bowl or get out to the Senior Bowl or get out to the combine, you do meet scouts, coaches, players, agents, other people that do what we do. And there's a lot that can be gleaned and learned out on the road. Is there anything that you can share with us that insights into the 49ers, where they're at, their off season that they've, embarked on, the draft ahead? Is there anything that you can share with us before we get into this that from your weeks on the road?
Yeah, no, I think one of the big ones was, really finding out, at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, running into a connection I have that, has deep ties to the Denver Broncos, and telling me, he's like, we're going after Talanoa Hufanga really hard, and we're probably going to get him because it doesn't sound like you guys are interested in bringing him back. So there's a good chance Hufanga is going to end up, with Pat Surtain, and obviously we've seen Trey Greenlaw end up there as well, and DJ Jones, former 49ers players. So that was one where I was like, I tweeted that out like probably a month and a half ago or something like that around the Super Bowl. Sure enough, Talanoa Hufanga lands with the Denver Broncos. So it's just a really cool experience because you're so immersed in the football world, and that's all anyone's really talking about. Well, I should take a step back. That was right when the Luka Doncic trade happened. So it was hilarious, Larry. We're on Radio Row at the Super Bowl, and everyone's talking Luka trade. It was pretty funny to see, but it's a really cool experience because you cross paths with so many people that are in the industry, in that world, coaches, players, agents, personalities, all these different types of things. So it was really cool. I would say most recently, the thing that stood out to me was I was covering Stanford's pro day. And when we think of Stanford, right, who do they have? Not a whole lot, not much talent, but they do have a wide receiver who's projected to go second, third round around that range. And it was really interesting to see that John Lynch had brought Leonard Hankerson with him, who's obviously the 49ers wide receiver coach. And they were all over this. They were all over Aiyuk. They were all over Aiyuk Aomanor. And it was just interesting to see that process play out, right? Like watching them request specific routes, watching Leonard Hankerson coach up Aiyuk in that environment on a route. And then on the final play, it was a 9 ball, deep ball, go ball. And John Lynch and Leonard Hankerson are standing directly behind me. And so I got to see the interaction after Aiyuk makes the catch, final play of the pro day, and saw that interaction. And it was just like, well, it's interesting. They clearly like Aiyuk Aomanor. So it's just an interesting process, right? It's one of the reasons why I like kind of like you said, getting out of the bubble, getting out of the cocoon, and boots on the ground and just kind of seeing and talking, and also like the Senior Bowl, being able to scout, watch up close and personal. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, if you could only go to one between the Senior Bowl, the Super Bowl, and the Combine, which one would you choose to go to?
Ooh, that's a tough one because they all have different things that make them awesome. I am such a football nerd. It's tough to beat being on the field shooting the Senior Bowl, like during the game. Like that to me, like you guys know, I love being behind the camera as well and shooting. So that's a different element. The Combine is so good as well for so many different reasons. Dude, you're putting me on the spot with that one. All right, pick one.
It is tough.
Pick one.
It's funny. It's weird too, because I kind of think of it as almost totally separate. Like I think of the Super Bowl as last year, and I think of the Senior Bowl and the Combine as next year. So it's like, to me, it's like totally different worlds. The Super Bowl is like the reward for having worked really hard all year for everybody, including the media in my mind, where I kind of feel like the Senior Bowl and the Combine, that's when it's time to get back to work. You know what I mean? Where it's like, put your nose to the grindstone. The Super Bowl is supposed to be fun. Let's have cocktails. Let's go party in Miami, San Diego, New Orleans, wherever. I don't know if Mobile and Indy are party places as much as let's go gather intel.
Well, I will say, Larry, that Indianapolis is the nightlife scene is phenomenal.
Is it really?
You really wouldn't expect it, but you go to those steakhouses, Prime 47, at night, it is literally the who's who of Ian Rappaport, John Lynch. You got all the coaches, Mike McDaniel, Jerry Jones. The entire football world goes to these steakhouses at night, and it's amazing who you bump into, who you talk to, the conversations that strike up. I'll tell you a funny story. I don't think I've told it on air, but Stephen Jones, right? I think I don't know Jerry's son, his exact role in the organization. He'd been drinking, having some fun, having a great time, and he was a little wobbly, I'll say. I thought he was going to tackle me, Larry. It looked like he stubbed his toe, was about to go head first and pile drive me. Thankfully, he pulled up right before me, but he almost took me out. But it's just a cool experience. There's so many different benefits to each individual one. But the football element of all three is pretty cool because the Super Bowl is like intel information gathering. Senior Bowl, a lot of scouting, and then Combine, it's like the mix of both those worlds. So it's a lot of fun. It's hard to pick which one. They all have a lot of positives, but hey, I like going to all of them.
Man, and we like that you're going to all of them because we either live vicariously or you share info, and it's great stuff. And my channel's still in its infancy, but this is only year 3 for us. But I can now kind of see that there will be a time where the Krug show will be at the combine. The Krug show will be at
Oh
the
yeah.
we went to the Super Bowl for the Niners. I don't know if I can get myself to go to a Super Bowl when the Niners aren't there because it's just so depressing. I can't, what am I going to sit there and watch a bunch of Eagles people be happy? And it's like, the whole thing makes me sick. But I do want to get out on the road for the combine and the Senior Bowl in the future. And that's something we're definitely going to do. This is my time of the year where I really start to hone in on, I've gone through the entire season. I've watched so many games, and my process, I don't know if I've ever shared it, but I just watch, organically. I try to watch 6-7 games a week organically. I tape a bunch of games. I got an intricate system with all kinds of DVRs and extra space, and I just pile up tons of tape, and I watch it TV copy organically. And I just, the same way I would do it as a fan, and just looking for guys with a notebook, and I just keep track. I keep gathering and gathering and gathering from really any point. I mean, from spring practice right on through the beginning of the college season, through the bowl season, into the all-star season. And that's just kind of how I do it. So I spent a lot of time up to today, up to a month before the draft, thinking, who do I like? Like really canvassing the thing and really looking and cross-connecting and all the historical data about the positions and what succeeds, what fails historically and all that stuff. And then just looking hard at the prospects. When I get to a month before the thing, I start to get more into the mode of not who do I like, but who do the Niners like? And and there's a lot of smoke screens, so it's hard to know exactly who they like. So we'll get to that because I do have an indication of a couple guys that they like, and I'm sure you probably do as well. And that's going to be the premise for our mock draft today, by the way. We're going to do a mock draft where Brad and I don't tell you necessarily who we would take. We're going to try to guess along with what we think the Niners are going to do. So we're trying to make this the best, most accurate mock draft that there is out there based on intel and our knowledge of the prospects and the Niners and their likes and dislikes. But before we get to any of that, the backdrop of this is this deadline that's coming up on the 1st of April. And it's not really a deadline. It's just a time when Brandon Aiyuk has it written into his contract that he's getting a bonus of a significant amount of money. And the 49ers, there's been a lot of trade speculation. And then suddenly 5 days before this deadline, Diana Rossini comes out with this, well, it doesn't look like there's a offer out there, and it looks like Aiyuk's most likely to stay with the Niners, almost as if somebody fed that to her with just enough time for people to take another look at Brandon Aiyuk. But let's get into that. I mean, I know you're close to Aiyuk. You've had him on your channel before. I'm sure you're somewhat invested in him. Would trading Brandon Aiyuk at this point, is it the right move? Is it the wrong move? Is it the right move for Jed's money, but the wrong move for the roster? Is it the right move for Jed's money and the right move for the roster? They're obviously going through a little bit of a cleansing of their cap. I won't call it a rebuild because there's too many talented players in this team for it to be a rebuild. They got 10 young core players. They've got 7 older core players. That's a 17-man core going into this offseason, and I'm sure they're going to try to double that core in this draft in this spring, after the draft market. So why don't we start with Aiyuk? Where are you on the Aiyuk thing? What makes some sense of it for us?
I think you did a really good job of kind of setting the table. It's based on what context, right? And I think when you look at a lot of the moves this offseason, I think a lot of the moves have been for the future, for getting, spending in a different direction than where they have been. So there's been a lot of moves that maybe fans have a hard time contextualizing because I think they see some of the additions and some of the key players that have left and say, how have we gotten better on the field? where I think you had mentioned there's also an element to this where the front office is trying to be cognizant of the money that's being spent. And as we know, John Lynch said that at the combine. When asked about it, and when asked about, I believe it was Brandon Aiyuk specifically by Chase Sr., I believe it was. And, obviously gives that big, long-winded kind of almost like a preview of what this offseason was going to be.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, if they were to make that move and were to make that trade, it wouldn't be to recoup the best value possible. And I think we actually spoke about this. I think I was right after the combine. I think we did Niners Nightly together. And I think you asked me about this question like the day that this kind of topic was brought up. And I was like, it doesn't make sense to me from a on-field perspective, from a value perspective, because he's injured. We don't know how healthy he is or when he'll be able to play. And what team is going to give up good compensation for a potential number one wide receiver to take on what effectively like a 4-year, $110 million contract, and the two roster triggers for 2025 and 2026 that go into effect on April 1st that effectively get Aiyuk $50 million guaranteed, right? And so there's so many elements to this, but if the 49ers were going to make that trade, it's to get out of the contract. It's not to recoup the best possible value for Aiyuk. It's to just say, you know what? We weren't a fan of giving this contract at the time. We've heard a lot about that, and this is our out, so we're going to take it. That doesn't mean, I've seen a lot of people mentioning, oh, maybe they get a 3rd round pick. And I think that would be maybe in a vacuum of Aiyuk being healthy, but considering the fact that he's not, I really have a hard time seeing the 49ers getting anything better than a 6th round, if I'm being perfectly honest, because of the contract that they are taking on for a player who has had a significant knee injury, and he's just too early on in the process to be able to determine how truly healthy he is. So if they were to make this trade, the deadline's coming up on Tuesday, it's to get out of the contract. It's not to recoup obviously you want to get assets, but I think the Diana Rossini trade, or the Diana Rossini report that you're mentioning, it's kind of to be like, you know what? I don't think the 49ers are going to get what they're asking for, looking for. So maybe that's why I don't expect something to go down.
It's interesting too. There was a guy in Cleveland, and I think his name was Frischella, who had this report that the Browns were interested. John Frischella Football.
He was very adamant that Aiyuk was getting traded last year as well.
He was adamant that Aiyuk was being traded. Yeah. So I reached out to him to see if we have him on the show, and he's like, "Hey, I'm retired from radio and podcasts. I'm an older guy, and this and that." And then so I did talk to him. He didn't want to come on the show, but I did talk to him, and he said, "I was told directly the Niners want a 3rd round pick." So I'm looking at the Rossini thing, going, I'm sure if the Niners want a day 2 pick for Aiyuk, I'm sure that probably has gotten out. If this guy knows about it, she probably has heard about it. And just because they're not going to get that, there might not be a team out there, and maybe she's canvassed the league, and there's enough people that have said to her, hey, you know what? The Niners are not getting a day 2 pick for Brandon Aiyuk. And then she's like, I don't see anything there. But the question that we don't know the answer to, and it's one that I would love the answer to, and I kind of fear the answer, unfortunately, is how low will the Niners go? How motivated are they to get this money back for Jed? Tim Kawakami seemed to think that they could recoup $110 million. That is a huge amount of money, especially when you're talking about maybe paying roughly that or more to Brock, any day now, we're thinking. So, to me, it seems like how motivated are the Niners to get that money back? And then the question is, if that's the motivation, and the Browns are interested, the Browns have 4 6-round draft choices. So would you take Brandon Aiyuk? Would you take, a couple 6-round picks and some nominal player to kind of muddy the transaction up a little bit? Take a Greg Newsome and 2 6ths? Would you do that? I probably would. And you might even be able to spin one of those 6-round picks into a Bryce Huff or something like that. Another player that who could be utilized for you guys, for the Niners in 2025. So that's the question we don't know the answer to. I don't think they're getting a day 2 pick. And I think that's probably what they told everybody. But now we're inside of the 5-day mark. And now, we're going to find out what the real motivation is. And I think you pegged it right. I think the motivation is not to get better. The motivation is to recoup cash. And I think the ask as far as the return is probably going to be pretty modest, because the real ask is we want to get out from underneath this $110 million commitment. So I'm a believer that John Lynch is not a good liar. I'm a believer that he tells us at the combine, and he has for like 3 years in a row, almost exactly what they're going to do. I mean, remember the Trey Lance here? It was like, hey, Trey's a great guy. We really love him, and he's really got to play. And then there's this pause, and then he's like, and that's the problem, because we got a team that's ready to win right now. And it was all of a sudden, it was like Trey Lance was a problem, and that was like when I was like, oh, Trey Lance is gone. They're trading him. Now they did trade him, but they didn't trade him until August. So that was February. So we had to endure 6 months of Krueger, you're hating on Trey. He's not going anywhere. Krueger, you're this. Krueger, you're that. All kinds of labels and hate and vitriol coming my way just because I read John Lynch as saying he's not going to be here. Well, the same way I read that from Lynch, I read this from Lynch as we're moving on from Brandon Aiyuk. And the good part of this is that we're going to get draft picks and we need to get younger. And he said all of it. He said that to Chase Sr. He's like, and the good part of this, and it was almost like stream of consciousness too, a stream of consciousness type quote. So I really didn't think he was picking his words. I think he was really kind of being honest and somewhat transparent. He's like, the good part of this is that, we need to get younger. We're one of the oldest teams and we're spending too much. So he never said what this was, Brad. But to me, this was, we're pawning Aiyuk at a loss, 4 picks that you're not going to be impressed by. But even though you guys are going to be upset about this, there is some positive in that we need to shed salary and we need to get younger. To me, he's already told us what's going to happen. It's just a matter of, can they find a team? And would he have said it without knowing that there was a team? Probably not. My guess is he probably knew that he had some deal on the table for something. I don't know. It's an awful lot of speculation, but they're not giving us a lot to work with. I think Ayuk's going to get moved before this deadline. Do you think he'll be back?
Well, I'll say this. I have heard that BA and the team is in a good spot. And I think, that depends on maybe who on the team you're maybe referencing. But I think with the theme of this offseason, I think we're seeing that there are moves and decisions being made that haven't been typical of the Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch era. So I think that shows that there has been a shift in philosophy. And so as a result of that, I do think there is a real potential that BA gets moved. Now, it comes down to, like you said, someone has to bite, Larry. Someone has to be willing to take on the contract and take on the injury. And I think we all can understand when Brandon Aiyuk is healthy, he is a dynamic, as dynamic as any wide receiver in the league. And who knows, what type of production he could do with more targets, more opportunities, more of a downfield, feed Aiyuk the ball type of offense. But I really do think that if the Cleveland Browns said, we're going to give you Greg Newsome, who I freaking love. He's a draft crush of mine. He's kind of buried in the depth chart right now. and they offer 2 6th rounders, I feel like the 49ers would jump on that. I feel like they'd be like, yep, perfect. Shake hand. Let's go. We can get out of all this whole contract. What I perceive it to be is like the 49ers front office looks at this BA situation like nightmare fuel, like the whole process of it to then actually paying him to then him getting injured. It just feels like they want the night to wake up and the nightmare to end, and they are willing to move off of him and his contract. And, if I have to put my general manager hat on, remove my fandom, I got a lot of love for BA. But if I have to put my general manager hat on, I can understand the thought process. I can understand, man, we have an ability to get out of this deal with a player who we don't know what he will look like. We don't even know when he will play. Is it week 1? Is it week 4? Is he middle of the year? So I do think if the 49ers find someone to bite, I think they'll reel that in and they'll take the compensation to get out of that deal.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Covering the Niners is never dull, never dull. And this, the other thing before we get into the mock here, John Lynch was asked by somebody at the pro day the other day, hey, and I don't even know what the question was, Brad, because his answer was, well, we got this thing called the draft. And I think a lot of people, myself included, were like, that sounds a little snarky. And it sounds a little like somebody was like, the question was like, you guys don't have a prayer in hell of competing. What do you think, John? Like it was almost like somebody's question was combative, and he struck back with, well, we got this thing called the draft. But Brad, I mean, even though I love the draft, and I really don't have a problem outside of Mason, who I think's got game, Mooney, who's got game, but we all know he just needed a change of scenery because of life, right? And Greenlaw, who I definitely think has got a couple good years left. Mm-hmm. The rest of the guys, I don't really have a problem with them saying goodbye to basically everybody. I like Banks as a guy and as a player, but the money that he got was exorbitant. And I don't have a problem with the other moves. So it's really just those 3 moves. So I know there's been a lot of hand wringing about who they've lost and who they've lost and who they've lost. It doesn't bother me who they've lost. It's a little off-putting in that they haven't really invested in much outside of Mac Jones. I kind of like Richie Grant and Pinnock a little bit. And
I like the DeMarcus Robinson sign.
DeMarcus Robinson may not be bad, but there's not a rock solid starter there. I'm okay with that. I'd rather build through the draft. I think it's the better way to go for every reason imaginable. But I understand that right now it's a little like it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Mm-hmm. Do you see the Niners contending this year, knowing that they're probably going to have to do most of the heavy lifting in this rebuild in the draft? And I love the draft and you love the draft, but we're also realists. And sometimes it takes a prospect that you like 3 years to figure it out. Sometimes it takes a prospect that's good, an injury redshirt year to kind of get it going. Are the Niners contenders this year, or should we all just come to grips with the idea that no, they're not contenders?
I think there are multiple ways to look at it, and kind of starting with the kind of notion of free agency and the mass exodus, as I think a lot of us has referred to it as. I'm 100% on board with you. With most of the players that have left, it made all the sense in the world to me. Shout out to those guys. Those guys have commanded the most money in free agency from a departing team. I think it was in like NFL history based on how much money that they signed for. Aaron Banks getting that contract. Congratulations. Good for him. Big fan of Aaron. The guy, I thought he regressed last year. So I think the 49ers already told us that they were going to be moving on from Aaron Banks with the draft pick of Dominic Pooney. So like you mentioned, most of those guys leaving wasn't the biggest issue. For me, the biggest issue was letting Hargrave, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd go, and basically only re-signing Kevin Givens. Other than that, I can make sense of a lot of the moves. Like, they got a lot of special teams depth. They got a blocking tight end to replace Charlie Warner, which they needed to do. It was so glaringly apparent on film that they were missing that blocking tight end behind George Kittle. They've got solid weapons, I would say, on offense still. The offense still, for the most part, is the same, minus who? Banks?
Mason.
And like I said, I thought
Mason, I guess.
And Mason, yes, who you assume Christian McCaffrey is healthy. Isaac Reno takes a step forward. So in large part, the offense is, for the most part, the same as it's kind of been the last couple years. Obviously, it's like they're getting some found money with hopefully getting a healthy Trent Williams, a healthy Christian McCaffrey. Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk leaves the roster, comes back. The only issue that I'm really seeing is the defensive line, and maybe a hole at the linebacker spot, and maybe they could upgrade the starting safety position. Maybe they could upgrade cornerback 3. But you take in the current roster as it stands without the draft. You take a look and you forecast the 49ers schedule, and you assume, again, that's the big asterisk with this team. I say it all the time, the 49ers have a chance to win every single year, barring injuries and them beating themselves. I think those are the two biggest opponents for the 49ers. And so if they can stay healthy and they can get out of their own way at times when it comes to execution, play calling, etc., I do think they have a chance to, compete for the division. We'll see. The Rams have taken a step forward. They've added some key pieces. They bring back their quarterback. They bring in Devontae Adams. So the Rams right now seem like the target for the 49ers to try to take down to win the West. But I think that's where it starts. You win the West, you get guaranteed playoff spot, and you just get into the dance. You get into the tournament, and then at that point, hopefully you get hot at the right time, and we'll see where it goes. But in a long-winded way of answering your question, I do believe the 49ers have a shot to bounce back, but boy, oh boy, they have put themselves in a hole that I haven't seen them be in heading into a draft. I don't know if you've noticed this trend, Larry, but when I look at 49ers roster construction under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, they seemingly plug every single hole heading into the draft. And I think of when they weren't going to resign Robbie Gould, they traded for Zane Gonzalez from the Panthers for a 7th-round draft pick just to say they had a kicker. And then they went into the draft and they drafted Jake Moody. The point being is they typically have at least bodies in each individual slot, and then they look to either upgrade or get a redshirt guy, right, that will sit a year and allow them to work into that starting spot, or just eventually take it over, like we saw with Renardo, Malik Mustafa, and Dominic Pooney. So that's just my read on it. It's like the defensive line has so many holes, and it seems like such a deviation from their roster construction philosophy that I got my popcorn ready, Larry. I'm ready to see what they are going to do in this draft, because it is it's looking like a very imperative draft to be able to be competitive on the defensive side specifically.
I cannot wait. It's going to be incredible. I'm going to be front and center on Thursday night. I'll be on part of the KNBR draft coverage that night with Greg Papa. We're going to be stationed in the conference room, literally across the hall from the Niner War Room on Thursday night. We'll talk to Lynch. We'll talk to Shanahan. We'll ask all the perfunctory questions. Awesome. So join us on KNBR. And then, of course, throughout the draft, every time the Niners pick somebody, I'll put up a video as fast as I can, and we'll do a number of live streams. And Brad will be doing tons of stuff, I'm sure, on your channel. And This is going to be a great time. I mean, it's going to be a great time. The draft is a fun time. All right, let's get into who do the Niners like and then the mock draft. And I want to share the screen because I don't know this guy. You may know Rob Lauder. Do you know Rob Lauder?
Yeah, I've been on his podcast before.
He covers. He's a 49er content creator, correct?
Yeah.
And is it? And his podcast is Striking Gold. Striking Gold. It's a 49er podcast. It's on Blue Wire Pods. So he's part of Blue Wire. Okay, so Kevin Jones, formerly of Niners Nation and Niners Wire. Anyway, Rob Lauder,
too, right?
You know what? I don't know Rob Lauder from KMBR, but you know
or
what?
I meant Kevin Jones from KMBR.
Kevin Jones, yes. And we should tell people the Krueger Show is distributed as well, partly by Blue Wire Pods, at least the audio portion of what we're doing. So we thank the good people at Blue Wire. We're partners with them as well. But Rob Lauder put this out. He said, just a friendly reminder that the 49ers consistently draft and sign players from top 30 visits. And he's got the last 3 years here. 24, Cowing, Bethune, Evan Anderson were top 30 visits. 2023, Jair Brown, Cam Latu, Darrell Luter Jr., Braden Willis, top 30 visits. 2022, Drake, Jackson, Danny Gray, Ty Davis Price, Spencer Burford, Kalia Davis, all top 30 visits. As you can tell by the names on this list, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to be good, but it does guarantee that they're going to be interested. And Steph Sanchez, who I've never actually had on the show, but I love her database, basically spreadsheet, where she keeps track of every single player the Niners have met with, the date they met with them, who reported it, what the details were. I mean, it's really, really good stuff. Well, I went back and looked at last year's list that she put out and the year before. And what I found was even more than what Rob Lauder is saying here. The Niners have acquired. Now, maybe they're off waivers, like Izzy Abanaconda is one of them. Maybe it's just guys that they've brought in. But they've acquired 24 players that they met with before just last year and the 23 draft. I don't even go back to 22. Just in the last 2 drafts, the 49ers have added 24 players that they met with. Now, how many did they meet with? Probably roughly 100, I would say. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less. But so basically 25% of the people they met with, they actually took, which in the grand scheme of things, when you look at the, 2,500 number of people that are potentially available for the draft or whatever number it is, it's probably a huge number. It actually does paint a picture that it is kind of important who they visited with. And as I said, she's got a list up. She's a great follow on X. Follow her and check out her list. But there's also, like, you and I have different people that we trust and know. One of the guys that I know really well is Tony Pauline. And I scouted with him years ago, and he's a legit guy. And he just doesn't throw a bunch of stuff against the wall. He's got real sources and real stuff. So if you see Tony Pauline says the 49ers like this guy, the 49ers like that guy. You know what I mean? Last year, he said it a month before the draft. He said the Niners are going to take Isaac Guerrero in the 3rd round.
I remember
Well, he was wrong. He was wrong, right? He went in the 4th round. But that's still pretty good a month before the draft to say that, to lock up a prospect in a team is a really good deal. And he did that last year with the running back. So this year, Tony says the Niners really love Olufemi Oladejo. The former Cal stackbacker who went to UCLA and converted to defensive end and just had an amazing year this year. And it looked great in Mobile. And I think he might have been coached up by KJ Wright, right? Wasn't KJ Wright his coach at Mobile?
I got a firsthand look at watching those two interact all week and on the sideline at the game. And I can tell you, Larry, there's definitely something real there.
Yeah. And Oladejo is spectacular. I mean, he is a spectacular. Brad, you sit there for a lot of the pressers at the combine. Were you there when Oladejo spoke?
No, I actually was in Hawaii at the combine this particular year.
Gotcha.
But I was able to be around Oladejo a lot at the Senior Bowl. And again, specifically on the sideline and watching I was standing right behind the bench, Larry, and just imagine KJ Wright coaching Oladejo directly and watching that interaction back and forth and seeing that energy reciprocate and how that whole works, right? You know that a big part of player evaluation is also kind of like there's a body language energy element to it. It's hard to quantify, but when you see it, you know it, right? You like, oh, these guys clearly have a rapport. There's clearly something here. And it was on full display. And he's super cool. Like, he is such a great personality. Yeah, such a great personality, ball of energy. When you think of like culture guys, like that's a guy where you're like, yeah, I would love to have that guy on the person. I'd love to have the person on my team. But then you go out and you watch him play, and you're like, oh, come on, man. Like, how do we get this guy? I've taken him in so many mock drafts. I can't even post the mocks anymore because they would all have Oladejo in every single one of them.
Well, who a guy who I love having on the stream. I don't know if you've ever talked to him, but Guy Haberman. Guy Haberman is a play-by-play guy, and he's a radio guy. So we've known each other for years and competed on rival stations. We've literally gone up against each other in the same time slots, and it's just, but we're real good friends now. And I've had him on the show, and I love his play-by-play work. I'm a huge fan. So I asked him, like, in November, Brad, I'm like, man, you're doing a lot of college football. I go, you know me, I'm all about the draft. Give me a guy or two that you've seen this year that you're super fired up about come draft time. And Guy's the perfect guy to ask for that, because he's the kind of guy that will, take notes of that and keep notes of that. And he said two names. He said Oluwafemi Oladejo. He's like, man, this guy is just really something. And the second name he said was Jay Toia, the gigantic nose guard for UCLA.
Okay.
And if you watch Toia, he's projected to go in like the 7th round, but that might not be a bad 7th round pick, because that guy is a wall. I mean, good luck running in the A gap if you have Jay Toia with his 350 pounds sitting right there. So anyway, Oladejo, Tony Pauline says the Niners are interested. Jeffrey Bassa, he says the Niners are interested. That's the Oregon linebacker who we saw Lynch and Tariq Ahmad flanking at the Oregon Pro Day up in Eugene last week. Yep. Ja Frazier, the corner from Texas San Antonio, who runs in the 4.3s and has good height, saying he's going to be like a 5th round corner. Supposedly the Niners, according to Tony Pauline, really like Ja Frazier. And then this morning we got 3 more names. Mike Green from Marshall, who had an amazing rep that we all saw against Josh Connerly of Oregon, where he just blew past Connerly and put him on his can. And then Harold Fannin, the unbelievable productive tight end from Bowling Green. How incredible would Kittle and Fannin be? And then Ben Scott, a center from Nebraska. And I haven't checked out Ben Scott, but I love the guys he goes up against every day, Ty Robinson and Nash Hutmacher. But interesting. So we have those 6 names. Is there, besides those 6 names, Brad, is there a player that you're, through your intel, that you think, man, the Niners love this guy, or he's a perfect fit, or anybody's whispered about any prospects? Or is it those 6 that we look at as the connected ones?
Well, there's obviously more, but just in my observation, I think Central Arkansas edge David Walker is definitely a person of interest. He's not your prototypical edge. I believe he's like 6'1". He's 6'1", 6'2". He kind of reminds me, if you want to think of player comp, he reminds me of Samson Ebukam. A smaller guy, but doesn't affect him. He can still win. He was a prolific, I think he had 30 sacks over 3 years. It was David Walker and Femi Oladejo that were like by KJ Wright's hip all week. KJ Wright clearly loved both of those 2 players, and those 2 players stuck together. It was interesting, right? Like, watching, we just mentioned about, the energy and the vibe of Oladejo and what he brings. I was able to interview David Walker after his first practice, where he really stood out to me. And he's super chill, super cool. He's a man of faith. And I just really think that those were two guys that KJ Wright was like laser beams on, like, and he was coaching the edges in that particular, I think it was American group. You know, they have the national and American teams, and he was coaching the national team, which included Mike Green, as you mentioned, and a bunch of other guys, Landon Jackson. But I think David Walker could be like a sneaky, like fourth round pick, like out of Central Arkansas. He's
Purple
not going to
turf.
he's not going to wow you
this year.
Yeah, he's not going to wow you in gym shorts. He's not going to be the guy like, I was taller than him, right, Larry? So I'm talking to him. I'm like, but he's got it. He's got the strength. He's got the speed. He's got the first step get off. He's got the technique. I mean, Anthony Belton out of NC State was one of the biggest risers for me on the offensive line during that week. And I just remember he beat him immediately off the line with a nice, beautiful swim around the edge. And then KJ Wright just chased him down. Just so excited about him winning that rep. So I do think, I don't know if they would draft him or not based on who they take ahead of, before. But David Walker out of Central Arkansas, again, he's not going to wow you with the eye test or the measurables. He's just a ball player.
Yeah. No, I mean, he wore number 8 for Central Arkansas. He played on the purple turf. His teammate is Shunderick Powell, who's got that unbelievable speed. And the Niners have shown interest in him as well. Walker, by the way, has got a forgettable name, David Walker. It's easy to forget that name, but his game is not forgettable. I mean, this guy won the Buck Buchanan Award this year. That's the top defensive player in the FCS. You're talking about a 6'1", 265-pound defensive end, 77.5-inch wingspan, 10.5 sacks this year, 4 forced fumbles. He's a big-time guy for sure. I mean, really, long arms. He is shorter. I'll say that, but the incredibly productive. 37 sacks, 151 pressures, and 5 forced fumbles in the last 3 years alone. This guy's a monster off the edge. And we were talking about Steph Sanchez and her list. She actually has put out this tweet. She said some of the players added to the 49er draft tracker recently. And sure enough, she's got Arian Smith, Zoff Frazier, who I mentioned just now, Elijah Roberts, who's a hell of a player as well, Derek Harmon, and there it is, David Walker. You also see Alec Ayamanor, who we talked about, Jeffrey Bassa, who we just mentioned, and Caleb Etienne, who's a monster tackle from BYU. But yeah, there it is. There's David Walker right there. So definitely that's an interesting one. That is an interesting one because the guy's got tons of game. And I love, to me, I know it's, height is a big factor, but I think height is the one area where the athleticism that it takes to play in the NFL now in 2025 is so extreme that whether you're 6'1", 6'2", 6 feet, that's all secondary. It's all a matter of how unbelievably athletic you are. You have to be a crazy futuristic athlete. So if that crazy futuristic athlete comes on a 5'11" frame and the scouts would rather you be 6'2", that's fine. I interviewed Chandler Martin yesterday. He's an awesome linebacker from Memphis who was all-conference player, runs in the 4.5s. He's 6 feet. He's 6 feet, 222. And yet the Eagles want him, the Saints want him, and he's probably going to go late on day 2 or early on day 3. And he's a 6 foot tall linebacker, but he's so athletic. And that these days that takes precedent.
And my little nugget on that, being a former offensive lineman, I can tell you my preference in going up against certain archetypes, right?
Yeah.
I always say, give me the 6'6", 350, 320 pounder every single day of the week as a former center or guard. I'm faster than them. I have better first step get off. I can get into their pads. Being 6'3" myself, I was considered an undersized offensive lineman. So my thing was speed, technique. Explode into their pads, get the leverage, and I win more often than not. I can beat them to the edges, and I can move them. It was the smaller packages, the 6'1", 6'2", 300s that had first step get off and the strength.
And there's very little surface area for you to put your hands on.
They're smaller. And what do we say, Larry? Low man wins, right? Especially at the line of scrimmage. So they already have won the leverage battle. So if they have the first step get off, if they have the technique and the requisite strength to go up against these 6'6" monsters on the offensive line, I don't see height as actually an issue. It depends on how you view it. You could actually see that, like, maybe an Eric Armstead is a bigger target, so he's easier to get your hands on, whereas a smaller target, they're quicker, they're faster, they're strong enough to rip your hands off of them. So not all 6'1" defensive end is created equal, but I think that's why there's outliers, exceptions to the rule. To me, David Walker is an exception to the rule. He wouldn't be a guy that I want a 6'5", 6'6", insanely long arms, speed off the edge, just let's call him Brian Burns. I want a Brian Burns type. That's my prototypical defensive end, but that's not the only way you can win. So I really don't have a problem with height as long as you prove that it's not a problem. And to me, he's proven it's not.
I had a conversation with Colton McKivitz once. I think it was when the Niners were playing Jacksonville, and I was asking about Trayvon Walker, and he's like, you know what, for me, I'd rather go up against a guy like that who gives me a bigger surface, a bigger target. He's a huge guy. He's strong. He's 275 than like a Leonard Floyd, who's more angular, who's harder to get your hands on. He's slithery. He's hard to corral. And, and yet Trayvon Walker was the first pick in the draft. He's thought of as absolute blue chipper. And some of these other guys like David Walker, some of these guys might be thought of as, well, they're good, but the height is a detriment. I really do think when you put on the film, the height's not a detriment. All right, let's get to our mock. We're gonna share the screen here on the mock, and we're gonna go with the NFL mock draft simulator. This one right here. It's the NFL mock draft database. Now we've gone with PFF, we've gone with Pro Football Network, but this one has the most players in it, so it gives you more variety to choose from. And we'll go fast, and we'll enter the draft room. Let's take a look. And
I've never seen this one, so I'm really excited to see how this board shakes out.
Yeah, this is, and this has a lot of players. So, like, it's going to have. I mean, I'll give you an example. We're going to look at quarterbacks. Let's just say. So these are all the quarterbacks, and of course, it starts with Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. Everybody's got these, but then it's got all kinds of guys. It goes way down deep into this thing where you've got, 30, you've got quarterbacks that are listed at prospect number 679. There's only going to be 260 some odd picks. So, you got a bunch of undrafted guys basically from Curtis Rourke down.
It's like they got everyone.
This is undrafted guys. So Max Brosmer, who some people think is a 9, somebody put out yesterday, hey, that Kyle Shanahan and Max Brosmer is the perfect quarterback for the Niners. And Benjamin Albright, who covers the NFL in the Denver market, liked that comment. I think it might have been.
Can I tell you who my Kyle Shanahan quarterback is?
Yes, please.
Kyle McCord, Syracuse.
Really? Tell me why. He's the transfer for those who don't know, he started at Ohio State and then transferred this year to Syracuse, had a big year this year throwing it to Rondé Gadsden, the tight end, who's an incredible move tight end. What do you like about McCord? His arm strength is supposedly considered off the charts.
So I shot that game. So I was on the sideline for Cal versus Syracuse, and he can spin it. Like, he really can throw it. The way he can throw with anticipation, he can throw to spots, he can throw covered guys open, and he plays all from the pocket. He can move, he can escape the pocket, but he is going to be a pocket guy, and he is going to be able to make every throw. And honestly, I also shot from the sideline Miami versus Cal, so I got up close and personal with Cam Ward.
I was there for that too. That game went on and on and on. I don't think it ended until. Is it over yet? I mean, is it ended yet? I mean, that game.
Can we run the clock out so Cal can get the win? But
there was like 26 penalties in the first half of Cal San Diego State, and we were there till like midnight. I mean, it was ridiculous.
But anyways, like I came away really impressed with how Kyle McCord can spin it. Like, guys can just throw the ball. You can see it comes out of their hand differently. And I was like, oh, this guy can throw. Like throwing's not the problem. I saw him being able to spread the ball all over the field, make good reads, make good throws, throw guys open who weren't open, throw with anticipation. I'm like, this guy feels like Kyle would like him.
Kyle McCord, he's from Mount Laurel, New Jersey, went to St. Joseph's Prep, started off at Ohio State, spent 3 seasons there, transferred to Syracuse for the spring of 2024. And he only played 1 year for Syracuse, but he's still in their top 10 for a lot of their career lists because he threw for 362 yards per game. Or it's like, no, 367 yards per game. So he has 66%, 34 touchdown passes. That's pretty good. So the guy had a really, really good year. He finished his college career 22-4 as a starting quarterback, 33-4 record in games that he appeared. Now he did play at Ohio State, and they win a lot of games, whether he's there or not. But yeah, this guy had a really good year. He set the ACC all-time passing record this year.
Yeah, and you're close with Greg Papa, right? You're going to be doing some shows with him for the draft.
Yeah.
He was on the sideline, and after the game, he went straight out to Kyle McCord. They took a picture. Clearly, Greg really likes McCord, so maybe there's maybe Greg's in Kyle's ear, like, hey, Kyle, have you checked out this Kyle McCord kid?
Well, and I'll give you one more as far as, adding some more credence to the McCord to the Niners story that we're telling here. Kyle Shanahan loves, football families, right? I mean, the Shanahans are tight with the McCaffreys. They're tight with the Kubiaks. Clint's the Niners offensive coordinator. Clay's the Seahawks offensive coordinator and was with the Niners before. They like guys who are like football families. Kyle McCord's dad, Derek McCord, second generation football player. He played quarterback at Rutgers in the 80s. So the fact family that business. He's the son, the family business thing, don't discount that. I'll say this. I do, there's 2 other quarterbacks that have really caught my eye. One is Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, who I just watched a lot of them this year. And everybody kept telling me this guy can't throw. But then he went to the combine. He threw great. I thought he looked good at the combine. I thought his arm strength was plenty at the combine. And he's a big kid. He's pretty athletic. I like the rhythm he was in. There's something about Riley Leonard. This guy's an incredible man of faith. I mean, this guy can't, this guy cites the Lord 19 times in an interview. It's even maybe a little much, and I'm a man of faith myself. But still, Riley Leonard, though, has got a crazy – there's something about him as a winner. And the guy makes good decisions with the football. I really like him, and I really like Brady Cook from Missouri, who ran great at the combine. This guy got carted off in a game this year and came back in the game and won the game. I mean, you don't see that many times where a quarterback gets carted off the field and then comes back. That happened. The receivers at Missouri talk about Brady Cook. You would swear they're talking about their Lord and Savior. I mean, it's the way they talk about this guy, and it's just like hushed tones. I mean, they love themselves some Brady Cook. So I love Riley Leonard. I like Brady Cook. And this, I got to be honest, I'm a little partial to the kid from Canada. There's a kid named El Gersma from Canada who's got a hose. What'd you think of him at the Senior Bowl, Brad?
I didn't love it. I thought he showed a good arm. Like he definitely can spin the ball. It just felt like, I don't know if it was, learning new wide receivers, which is definitely a part of it. Just felt like some timing was off and things of that nature. But from like a developmental prospect standpoint, I could definitely see it. He looks like an NFL quarterback. The other guy who looks like an NFL quarterback that stood out to me as well was Tyler Shook, I think is how you say his name, out of Louisville.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that passes the eye test. He stood out to me in the opening day warm-up line. Just like, oh, he just moves differently. I don't like Larry,
Big arm,
because
big arm.
You watch football so much, but you also watch all the in-betweens of football. You watch the standing around, you watch how they talk to each other, you watch how they kind of move through their day. I don't know. You can kind of tell sometimes, like, oh, that guy's just a ball player. Now, he can spin it, he can throw, he looks the part. I'm not positive how well he can read the field. I haven't done any homework on him. But he stood out to me. He stood out to me, and he's been one of the bigger risers throughout this process. But back to Riley Leonard, the interesting 49er tie with him is I was covering, you know how they do the Dwight Clark series event where it's hosted by Mayoko.
Yeah.
Where they have like the ballroom or whatever in San Jose, and they had the panel of, it was so cool. It was Alex Smith, Brock Purdy, Steve Young, and Jeff Garcia. And
I saw that on television.
Dude, Larry,
NBC
you would have
Bay Area had it.
You would have loved it. It was those four guys just talking ball, and it was like, this is amazing. Like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
They had a college player ask a question to them. That player was Riley Leonard. It was interesting.
He there?
I didn't know. Yeah, he was there. He
was there?
He stood up, and they handed him a microphone, and they asked him a question. At the time, I had no idea who he was, and come to find out, it was Riley from Notre Dame.
Wow. So he was in San Jose for that.
He was in the building, and he asked them a direct question.
Wow. That's incredible. That's incredible.
Yeah.
There's something about that kid that's magical. I'm a big fan of Marcus Freeman, the head coach there, and I'm a big fan of Riley Leonard. I just think there's something about Riley Leonard that's really intriguing. All right, let's get to our mock, because we teased it and we buried the lead, but let's get to it. Would you rather go first or second? Would you rather pick at 11 or 43?
I don't have a preference. I'm along for the ride.
All right, let's go. We'll let you go first, and I'm going to hit the start up here, and we'll see where this goes.
All right.
Okay. And you've got a bunch of trades, but we're going to discount the trades because the only downside of this mock or this simulator is they give you trades that are just bogus. For example,
that's an insane trade.
One. Look at this trade. Who wouldn't do this trade? The Niners have the 11th pick. The Dolphins called. They're saying, hey, will you move down 2 picks? We'll give you our 2, a 4, a 5, and 2 7ths. Yes, we'll do it.
Taking that immediately.
I mean, who wouldn't do that? I mean,
before they could even get the 5th round pick, I would say I'm accepting. Yes.
I know, seriously. If they just said, here's the 2nd round pick, I would do it.
Yeah.
To move back 2 spots. So we're going to eliminate the trades. We're not going to go trades. So now you're looking at the board here. Let me push this up a little bit. You can see more of it.
We're going quarterback at 11?
Oh, wait. No. Yeah, we're not going quarterback. We'll go all. How about that? We'll go all. Here's the best players available. Tet McMillan, Tyler Warren, Jalon Walker, and I really want your thoughts on Jalon Walker, Will Johnson, Shamar Stewart, who I'm a big A&M fan, and I do believe Shamar Stewart's going to be a player in the NFL, even though he hasn't had the production. I know it's a little bit of a projection. There's a lot of risk involved in these 2 picks, Shamar Stewart and Mikael Williams. There's Jedi Barron. There's Kelvin Banks. There's Jihad Campbell, Mike Green. Now Kenneth Grant. I'm a big Kenneth Grant fan. I'm taking him in a lot of mocks. You can go Eman Worry. You could go monster guard Tyler Booker, Walter Nolan. Josh Simmons was a top 5 pick until the injuries this year. By the way, Emeka Egbuka ran in the 4.4s today. 4.48 at Ohio State Pro Day. And Will Campbell is not here, so we don't have to worry about that. But Will Campbell was measured with 33-inch arms, which, I mean.
His arms grew 3/8 of an inch since the combine, Larry. Isn't that remarkable?
I will say this, though. If you watch, you were an offensive lineman. If you watch end zone tight, okay, that's the end zone angle tight, which is what offensive line coaches watch.
Mm-hmm.
You would never ask again, does arm length really matter? A tackle in the NFL, arm length matters. Don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't. It does matter. Now, it doesn't make it doesn't make a guy who's not tough. It doesn't make a player who's not good. But if you are already tough and you're already good, and you got two players that are both tough and both good and both smart, and one guy's got 35-inch arms, and the other guy's got 31-inch arms, the geometry of the tackle position, if you watch one-on-ones and how it's done, that arm length matters. And I'll never believe that it doesn't. I wouldn't take a bum with long arms, but long arms do matter at tackle. Doesn't matter as much at center and guard. It matters a lot at tackle. That all being said,
I'm definitely a per prospect basis on the long arm topic for sure.
You got to watch the reps. You got to watch the reps for sure. So I'm just gonna roll down the list here so you can see all the top guys, just so you know. But you're probably not going to go with guys down here in the 50s, but you never know. All we're thinking here is, what would the Niners do? So would they take the top? Would they take the top receiver? Teteroa McMillan's sitting there. Would they take the top tight end? Tyler Warren's sitting there. I get the feeling that they're going to go impact defensive player. Okay, if you said, what do I think they're going to do? I think that unless like a Membu is sitting right there, or Campbell, and in this scenario they're not, I think it's very likely the Niners are going to go to Robert Saleh and say, Robert, which of these defensive stars do you want? And he's going to choose between Jalen Walker, Will Johnson, Shamar Stewart, Mikael Williams, Jedi Barron, Jihad Campbell, all these guys. Grant, Green, Pierce, Starks. I mean, they're all Eman Worry, Nolan. I think that's probably the whole list. Maybe Derek Harmon. But I think they're probably going to choose, between those defensive players. That's just my guess. But you're making this pick. So what would you have the Niners doing here at 11?
So I agree with you that they're probably going to go impact defense. I love McMillan. I really do think he could be a special player in this league. Tyler Warren, also phenomenal tight end, but it doesn't make sense to me at pick 11. So then you're really kind of trying to drill it down between Jalen Walker, Will Johnson, Shamar Stewart, Mikael Williams. I've done some Mikael Williams work in scouting Membo, but I didn't come away too impressed with Williams. At least maybe that's because he's going up against arguably the best offensive line prospect in this class. But the player that really is starting to intrigue me at this pick, if they stay, one of the reasons why I'm team trade back is, as you go down that list, there are so many similar, I would say, in-range players. Like James Pierce is a solid player coming off the edge. Josh Simmons obviously has the injury, but he's also a phenomenal player. Nick Imanwori, total high upside traits guy who can actually play well and will punch you in the face. Walter Nolan is a guy that I really like. So that's why I like a potential trade back and trying to gain more picks in the top 100. But we're doing what we think the 49ers would do.
Well, we could trade back. I mean, like in this mock, there's offers, and we don't have any offers here, but there's also trades, and you could trade back if you wanted to pick one team to trade back with, if you so chose. And if you really do want to trade back, you can. We can, like if you go like trade back, you just pick what team, and then this blue line, if it's in the middle, you can make the trade. If it's too much to the right or left, they don't let you make the trade. So if there is a trade back idea and you're really set on it, because I do think trading back is a high likelihood, especially if you're really going to try to build this thing through the draft.
Yeah,
I think that the players that you get from 8 as the same player you're getting at 28.
Larry, I think you were the one who put out like a 20-person mock draft like a month or so ago, or like 2 months ago. And I was like, a 20-player mock draft? What the heck? And then I'm like, I'm thinking about it. I'm like,
look at this thing.
There it is.
There it is.
And then I'm thinking about it once we get through this free agency. I'm like, oh my gosh, Larry was on point. He knew what the plan was. That's why he went with the 20-person mock, because they need like 20 players at this point. So I agree. The trade back, acquire as many picks as you can in the top 100, top 150. And if you're coming home with 15 players, even more, like, I'm down for that, because, we the 49ers hit last year on their draft, but we've also seen 2021 through 23. So I'm a fan of taking as many shots as you can. But if I'm going to put myself in the same.
And by the way, last year's draft, not to interrupt you, but last year's draft was great. But what did the Niners really get out of last year's draft? They got Pooney, Renardo, Mustafa, Garendo. Those four.
Pearsall, did you mention him?
Pearsall, no, didn't mention him. 5. Evan Anderson, that's 6.
Undrafted.
So they got at least 6 players out of that. But they've got 12. They've got 11 picks right now. I think they could probably get 6 players off of what they have right now. But if you could get 15 picks, you might be able to get 10 players. And if you did get 10 players out of this draft that were useful for your team and building blocks, you might be in the playoffs this year. You might be in the Super Bowl next year. I mean, that's the way I see it.
No, I agree. I think they need 8 impact players in this class, which is quite the challenge. But
you like Jalen Walker here? I mean,
I was just going to say, if I'm the San Francisco 49ers and I'm looking at all the needs that I have, Jalen Walker really stands out to me, because I can use him in 2 spots. I can use him as a pass rusher, and I can use him as an off-ball linebacker. I actually like him more as an edge rusher, even though he is only 6'1", 243 pounds. I really like what he brings to the table, kind of our similar conversation that we had with David Walker. I really don't care about your height or certain measurables as long as you show me you can go out and play. So with him, he's a guy that strikes me as he could rush off the edge. He could play off-ball linebacker. He is a phenomenal athlete on the field. Like, it really stands out. So I think with the first pick, I'm going to go Jalen Walker right here because of the versatility. I would be drafting him as an edge, but I would leave my options open throughout the draft. It kind of gives you a sense of flexibility as well, depending on where your draft ultimately lies.
Let me stop sharing the screen for a second. Let's go with Jalen Walker there. I want to share the screen and show you this little video, which I think is pretty damn good too. This is a PFF guy that I follow sometimes, and he has a good point here. But let's listen to this, and then we'll talk about this for a second.
I believe that Jalen Walker will be pretty high on their board. I don't think they would do it, though, unless the league is just way higher on Jalen Walker than I am, which could be the case. I agree with you that I think it would be Mason Graham, but I don't think it's a scenario where they're sprinting to the podium no matter what. I don't know if there's a player outside of Abdul Carter, but more specifically Travis Hunter. I think the Jags could trade back. I think that they believe with him and Liam Cohen coming in at the same time, they believe that they have a long leash, like a 3-4 year plan.
Wait, wrong video. I wanted to, it's this guy. I don't know if you saw this guy's video. But that's not the one. Let me see if I think it's maybe just down here. Oh, here it is. Picked the wrong one. Here it is. We'll share the screen and show you this. This is actually the right cut. Sorry about that. Here we go. Here's the same guy talking about Jalen Walker.
Jalen Walker, I'm still nervous about him as a player. 30th right now on the big board. Now he has an average draft position 7 spots higher, so his average draft position is 23. That sort of speaks to, I think a lot of people outside of us are higher on Jalen Walker. And I really do. I like him as a player, top 30. I think if you wanted to take him back into the first round, early part of the second round, hearing how he talks about the game of football, how he evaluates his own game, how he evaluates the guys that he's going up against, having that coach's background to him. I love all of that stuff. It's hard for me to give him this oh yeah, let's put him in the top 20. Let's put him in the top 15. Some people talk about him in the top 10, like for the Carolina Panthers at number 8, because he's not built like an edge rusher at all whatsoever. whatsoever. Can be a very valuable player, but I just think about, I don't love the linebacker instincts that he showcased this past year, so I don't love sort of his feel for spacing and coverage, specifically if you got him in off-ball linebacker roles, and he's just not built like an edge rusher. So given a lot of the intangibles, how highly it sounds like a lot of the people at the Georgia program sort of speak of him, I would definitely take a chance on him. I think he's going to be a good football player, and I like him. Just, I'm not there with that top 20, top 15, so that's where I am with Jalen Walker.
You know, and I understand what he's talking about, but I just disagree. I just think that the trait that stands out when you watch Jalen Walker is the speed. This guy can close down the space as fast as any linebacker, and he played a lot of defensive end. So if you play a lot of defensive end and you don't play a lot of snaps at linebacker, there's going to be some spacing issues. There's going to be some bumps in the road that you need to smooth out. But what this kid has, they just can't teach. This guy's the Butkus Award winner. His dad was a All-American linebacker at Catawba. His brother plays cornerback at Georgia State. This guy's a Butkus Award winner. The closing burst is just absolutely elite. 94th percentile as far as speed. The motor runs hot. He's super smart. To me, this is, and I hate to say it because I know they were used differently, and there'll be people be like, dude, totally different. I'm just talking about athlete and intellect and the total package. He reminds me of Patrick Willis from the standpoint of same size, same kind of unbelievable closing burst, same strength to be able to take on bigger guys with ease. He just reminds me a lot of Willis. I know Willis played a stack backer spot. This guy played defensive end. So people be like, dude, it's a totally different guy. But I don't know that he's going to play defensive end at 6'1", 245. I think he's probably going to be a stack backer who delayed blitzes, and maybe you move him up on the line of scrimmage on key third downs in a NASCAR package where you move your end to tackle and your linebacker to end. You know what I mean? That kind of thing. But I love him. I absolutely love him. And to me, if you pass on this guy, I don't know. If you really are about making your defense better, how do you pass on this guy?
You want to know my comp for him?
Yeah.
Hassan Reddick. Remember the same argument with Hassan Reddick? The Cardinals take him. They put him at off-ball linebacker.
Too small.
He's a bust. Didn't work. He's not a Mike linebacker. They shift him to edge. Whoa. Oh, that's crazy. He's 6'1", too. So, again, I'm less I treat, just my personal philosophy, I treat each individual as an individual. I don't hold other prospects against them. I've done that in the past, and I've gotten burned for it, and so I've learned from it. I really try to evaluate each player in their own vacuum, try to remove all the biases, and just really try to understand. And respectfully to PFF, they are a great platform for tracking metrics and tracking stats and doing all of that. But I would say that I'm not going to PFF for player evaluation, if I'm just being perfectly honest. So I respect all the work that they do. They do a ton of great work. But yeah, they had like Jalen Walker in the 40s. And I think they reluctantly had to bump him up into the mid 20s because they were getting so much heat for it. And so that's the thing. It's like
Krueger, Brad has him third overall. Jalen Walker
has him top 5, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and those are just reference. I don't use those guys. Like, there are times when there are people that I respect and I love their evaluations I disagree with. And I think that's okay. I think that's why football evaluation is so fantastic, because we can see the same player, the same tape, and we can walk away with a different evaluation. And so each individual evaluation, you got to own it. You have to be convicted in your eval. And that's why it's like, him saying that does not sway me in the slightest. I understand his opinion. I understand some of the things that he's pointing to, but it is what it is, man. You can either play or you can't. And that's really what it comes down to for me. And I look at Jalen Walker and I see his ability to play on the edge. I see his ability to play in the run game off the edge. Yes. Is he not a prototypical edge player at 6'1", 243? No, he is not. But neither is Hassan Reddick. He's 6'1" as well. He's 6'1", 240. So if you want to compare and contrast, like that's my comp. He's like a Hassan Reddick. He is coming out of Temple, except he played big time college football at Georgia. Hassan Reddick coming out of Temple, who was a draft crush of mine. So I do I think you can hear the passion in my voice, Larry. I did think Hassan Reddick was an edge. I didn't think he was an off-ball linebacker. So I've had this debate, Larry. So, can he play either or? Does he fit the prototypical off-ball linebacker better than a prototypical edge? Of course, but I see the ability for him to have success on the edge regardless of his measurables.
So now we're at pick 43, and we've got Jalen Walker, a great defensive player. Whether he's an edge or an off-ball linebacker, he could be both. It could be both. But he's going to help the Niners quite a bit. So now we're here at 43. Now I'm looking at the board. There's Amarion Hampton, great running back. Okay. There's Donovan Jackson, who I love. Donovan Jackson. He played guard, but then when Simmons got hurt, they moved him to the left tackle, and they won the national championship with this guy at left tackle. He's got really, really long arms. He's very intriguing. I love Donovan Jackson. That would be a tough guy to pass up. Benjamin Morrison is a very good corner, and to me, he should be a top 20 pick, and he's here now at 43.
He just
That's
didn't
great
play
value.
because of injury, but he's a phenomenal cornerback.
He's a phenomenal corner. Then there's Travion Henderson, who, man, I just got to think Bobby T is going to love Travion Henderson. He's a great blocker, but, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield, and I think he might be a better pro than he was at Ohio State. So he's intriguing. I got to have him on the list. There's Darius Alexander, who's a monster. You saw him he's had a very good draft prep. He was really good in Mobile, and he was
biggest risers.
Yeah, he was very impressive. So there's that. There's Trey Harris sitting there. You got to go a little bit further down the list. Now, Harold Fannin, that they just they had a visit with Harold Fannin, and Harold Fannin had an epic year. He's had an incredible career. I do think Isaiah Bond might get a look here, just because I think Isaiah Bond is exactly the kind of receiver that the Niners probably need. They need that downfield vertical threat. So this is tough. This is really tough. But I think I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go with Darius Alexander here, just because Toledo is a really underrated program. This guy's big, strong, fast. Heck, I think did you talk to this guy, or you watched him definitely in Mobile? I think he definitely had some film.
He stood out to
Alexander's
me on day one.
He did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us what you like about Alexander.
So he reminds me of like an inside out guy. He can rush from the edge. He can play base down edge, but he can also rush from the interior. And, he's not the most explosive athlete, but he's strong. He has great pass rushing moves. Him and TJ Sanders, the South Carolina.
Yeah.
Defensive tackle are like my dream picks at 43. Both, I would say TJ is more predominantly a 3-tech, where I'd say Darius is more of an Omenahue, but they're both very similar in really make a guard's life a living hell at the next level. And that's what the 49ers need right now. They need someone who can wreak havoc from the interior and be a 3-down player. Not only do it in the run game, but do it in the passing game. And both Darius Alexander and TJ Sanders are that player for me at 43.
Yeah, I just think that Alexander is just too good to pass up right there. All right, so now you're up with pick 75.
He's got first round hype right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's, to 43, I think, is for a guy that worked out like that, and had that kind of film. I'll take a shot on Alexander there. And you know what? I kind of feel like when you see guys, excel in the draft process, it makes you go look at their film again. But if you go back and look at that film again and you see production, man, the fact that they shine in the draft process is something you should take note of. And the example I would use is last year with Braden Fisk. He had a good career at Florida State. He was a good football player, but man, he really lit it up in the draft lead up. And the Rams grabbed him, and Fisk and Verse reshaped their entire season. I mean, those two guys were amazing. So you're up at 75. The highest rated player on the board is Alec Ayamanor. But, here's my problem with Alec Ayamanor. The guy has an 8.3% drop rate, and he blew out the knee, and he blew it all out. ACL, PCL, MCL, meniscus. Now, that was years ago, I think, and he's healthy now. But I did not see a single play from Ayamanor where he didn't have a contested catch. Like every time, every ball is contested because he doesn't play to the 40 time. He doesn't move to the workout numbers. I'm going to take a hard pass on Alec Ayamanor for myself personally, but you're on the board here at 75, and there's lots of good players here, including Harold Fannin, Isaiah Bond, Jalen Knoll, Demetrius Knight, Cam Scatabo,
Royals,
Omar Norman Lott's a Sacramento guy. He went to Grant High School, and he looked very, very strong. Makuba could be a plug-and-play free safety for them. Jared Wilson could finally make Chris Forster forget Jake Brendel. Josh Farmer is I think a very unbelievable player. Could be at 87. Savion, Dylan Sampson, Oladejo still there. So who do you want to go with? This is what's so exciting about this draft is we're here pick 75, and there's all kinds of loaded talent everywhere.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like they got to come away with somehow like 8 picks in the top 100. If they can, they're coming home with some good players. So again, I can move it around to you.
I can move it around too if you want me.
No, I'm good. I'm good. This to me is the ultimate. What would we do? Or what do we think the 49ers would do? Because like I mentioned, John Lynch and Leonard Hankerson were all over Alec. They were all over him. I also got some intel from someone who works in the program who's like, John Lynch has been checking in on Alec for 2 years now. Like he has had eyes on this guy for a long time. I think I would go some other guys. Is Beck off the board? Jack Beck off the board? I'm high on Jack. He's not a
Betch from TCU.
Beck, yeah.
He's on the board. He's just down here somewhere. Let me see. Well, I think he's got to be on the board. Wait a second.
There's no way.
Wait. Let's go.
300s.
It can't be. He's going in the top 55. Jack Betch.
Oh wow, David Walker went right ahead.
No, it's Deion Walker. That's Deion Walker.
Deion Walker. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me see. As far as David Walker, David Walker might still be there. Noah Femi's there. Yeah, David Walker is there. There he is.
135, but you can target him later.
Yeah. But you're. I think
this
might
is the
be
hard
right.
part. It's like, are we?
Do you really think they? I mean, I know they love. I know they like Ayamanor. But would they go with Ayamanor over Isaiah Bond, who just ran 4.36 and is healthy?
I mean,
and Jalen Knoll. I mean, I'm not a big Jalen Knoll fan when I saw the body type, but when I watched the film, my God, Jalen Knoll looks really good.
He is. No, he really stood out to me at the Senior Bowl as well. I really like him. Him and Higgins, pretty solid. Gosh, see. It's going to throw off the whole mock. So if it were, I'm going to do it this way. We went Darius Alexander, Jalen Walker. He can either be an edge. He can either be an off-ball linebacker. One of the reasons why I like that pick is because you can have some flexibility.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if Alec is sitting there at 75 if the 49ers took him. Now, I don't think that would be what I would do, but I think it would be something that it wouldn't surprise me. Another guy like Elijah Arroyo, he is all like, if they like Harold Fannin, they should also like Elijah Arroyo.
Yeah, he's like a wide receiver.
Yeah. So, Gosh. See, this is where the battle begins. Am I going to pick who I want, or am I going to pick who I think they're going to pick? And that's really the battle.
See, here's the one thing. The one thing I would say is that the Tony Pauline report on Oladejo didn't just say, hey, they like Oladejo. It was like they like Oladejo and they're going to pick him in the second round. Now, that was very specific. That was very specific. Now, his Garendo take last year was they like Garendo, they're going to take him in the third round. And, of course, he went in the fourth round. Mm-hmm. So maybe, just because they like Olufemi doesn't mean that he'll go in the second round. But I definitely could see them going either Ayamanor or Oladejo here because they're both on the board and they like them both, I think.
I'm so conflicted right here, Larry, because I do think they would probably heavily consider Aiyuk here. I don't think I would necessarily love that because I think I like Jalen Royals quite a bit out of Utah State as well.
Yeah.
So this is the dilemma here. Do we go with?
Well, we've decided that we're going to try to go with what we think they will do.
I hate that I have to make this pick. If I think what they would do here, I think they would go Aiyuk, and based on
so we'll give them Aiyuk at 75. Let's do it. We'll do it. Aiyuk at 75, and once again, for those watching, this isn't necessarily who Brad and I would pick. This is who we think the 49ers would pick.
Yeah,
right, so I'm up at 100 now, and there's Cam Scatabo sitting right there. But I kind of, and then these are all very intriguing. Jalen Royals, very intriguing. But you just got a receiver, right? And Omar Norman Lott's intriguing. You do need multiple tackles. Farmer is intriguing. Savion Williams, a lot of people think is a Deebo Samuel type player. But I'm going to go Oladejo because I really believe that if he's there, they're going to want him. And I do think Walker can help you as an edge, but I think he's, as I said, I see Patrick Willis. So I'm going to say Oladejo. Now, we're not going offensive tackle or defensive tackle. I guess we went Alexander, but we haven't gone offensive line yet. But the 49ers stated position is that from Chris Forster himself, the offensive line coach, we feel like we can find offensive linemen that fit our scheme later. And so that's their philosophy. That's not our philosophy. So you're up at pick 113, and now this thing really opens up. So now you probably do need me to kind of show you the board at different positions. Scroll down a little bit. Yep. So you have Savion Williams, you have Dylan Sampson, Chris Paul, DJ Giddens, Jacob Parrish. If you want to go corner, this is kind of right here. I'm kind of thinking they may go a corner pick somewhere. And you do have Denzel Burke. I love the Savion Jones. I thought he was amazing in Mobile. Zay Alexander, Jackson Slater came on my channel from Sac State.
He?
Yeah, he did.
I'm a big fan of Jackson. I interviewed him.
He's a good dude. Yeah, really good dude. In Jeffrey Bassa, they talked to him at Oregon. His pro day. Jonas Sanker, Matt Barrows thinks Jonas Sanker they've met with Elijah Roberts. Elijah Roberts is kind of interesting too because he's kind of a DN, but he could be a D tackle. He's kind of like an Arden Key. So a lot of interesting names here. Caleb Rogers had some of the best 40 times, or short shuttle times. Last year they drafted 2 guys at the offensive line and 2 undrafted guys. All had good numbers in the short shuttle. Well, Caleb Rogers had one of the best times in the short shuttle. He's very athletic. So
go back.
And then Teddy
back
Buchanan.
That's my boy.
Yeah.
I might have to go BPA. I do think
I can also show you other positions if you want to take a look.
I think my thought process is for the 49ers to come away with 4 defensive linemen in this class.
Okay.
So
I'm thinking 5.
Yeah, minimum 4. So if Omar Norman Lott is sitting there at 113, I really like his game, kind of a DJ Jones squatty body type. Can play in the zero tech, so he could pair up really nicely with Darius Alexander and Femi Oladejo, and wherever you put Walker, it gives you the flexibility to do a lot of different things. Andrew Makuba is also a very intriguing prospect based on his speed, and then of course Jared Wilson as well. So I think I'm gonna have to go BPA here. I'm gonna have to go Omar Norman Lott. I would consider him at 75. So taking him at 100 feels like a great pick to me.
Yeah, I mean you're getting a player at 113 who's at 84. So yeah, that's a good pick. And also that's gonna be very popular. Sacramento kid. And what really the overwhelming trait when you watch Omar Norman Lott is the strength. He's got great strength. He just seriously moves. You have a hard time moving that guy. He's definitely a strong guy. All right, now we're at pick 138. Now we're in kind of the best player available mode. I'm still thinking corner. I'm still thinking D-line, and we've yet to go O-line. So let's take a look at the offensive tackles. There's Holland Pierce, who's just a monster body, but maybe, Logan Brown played with Pooney at Kansas. He's pretty athletic. I kind of, my sleeper offensive lineman is this guy right here, Miles Hinton, who started at Stanford and moved to Michigan. And he's just a huge guy. He's about 350 pounds, 360, something like that. He's a gigantic tackle, and he buries people. I think he's going to be a steal. I mean, they have him as an undrafted player. So I could always go that direction late. All right, let me see defensive line, because the defensive line picks, I think it's a pretty deep group, but we're getting down into it now. Elijah Roberts, Howard Cross is really athletic. Tim Smith's pretty athletic. Stackhouse I like. Barrow. See, we're now in that. We're down. I like Eric Gregory a lot. I like Keontae Hamilton a lot. Okay, let me look at edge again. I don't know if we need an edge, but, you can never have enough. Antoine Powell-Ryland.
They're still really good edge players.
I'm going with this guy right here. To me, this guy, Savion Jones, is just monster. This guy's 290 pounds. He played defensive end at LSU. LSU gets some of the most amazing recruits in the country. This guy played inside in the Senior Bowl and just was way, way too quick for the interior offensive lineman, and he just lived in the backfield. I think this is a potentially great player. I think Savion Jones should be a first-round pick, and the fact that he's here at 138, there's no way. This guy's 6'6", 290 with pass rush ability and the ability to play inside or outside. 6'6", 290. To me, we've now built a pretty ferocious line. You've got a gigantic end. You've got a speed edge rusher in Oladejo. You got two big tackles. You got Walker, who can play off the edge or at stack backer.
Off this build, I'm putting him off ball. He'll be a backer with the way we're building this defensive line right now.
No question. But you also have the ability, the one thing I love about the Niners under Kasarik is I loved when they had a better cast when they went for that 4 defensive end alignment, where you have like maybe a Sam O inside. I kind of like that because, in obvious passing downs in the NFL today, I mean, it's like if you're putting a non-pass rusher out there, you're doing yourself a disservice. Yeah. Because they're just not going to block that guy. And as you know, as an offensive lineman, they're going to target where the non-pass rusher is. They're going to sag in off that guy and help on everybody else. And I think it's just, so I think we're in an era kind of like NBA where you can only have one non-shooter on the floor in the NBA. I think you can only really have, one. You definitely can't have 2 non-pass rushers on a line, but I think the modern football is that everybody on the front line can rush the passer.
Yeah.
So I think that era of, the Jonathan Hankins, he's a 2-down guy who's going to hold the point. Okay. In reality, on 3rd down, I want him off the field because I want to put somebody out there who can get the quarterback. So you're up at 147, and there's a lot of different directions you can go. Let me go all here so you can see the top of the board. You have Terrence Ferguson. You got Jared Ivey, Torrey Horton, Holland Pierce, Cy Alexander, Jackson Slater from Sac State, Devin Neal, Elijah Roberts. They talked to him this week. Ransaw, the safety from Tulane. Caleb Rogers, athletic tackle from Texas Tech. Connor Colby, another athletic player from Iowa, guard. Kandra, it's not a bad player. Teddy Buchanan. Now we're getting down into it a little bit, but there's still a lot of good. A lot of people feel like Jaden Blue. You saw that quote yesterday, Brad. Did you see that? Was it? It was.
I believe so,
It was.
yeah.
It was the former chief safety.
Said something about he looks like a Kyle Shanahan guy or something like that.
Yeah, said that he looks like a Kyle Shanahan back. And I think Jaden Blue men are running in the 4.3s. There's Dante Thornton, who's a big, fast receiver. I think this guy right here, Brashard Smith, is a receiver, even though they list him as a running
really?
back. But, well, I mean, I think
he's a good football player.
He's a great, explosive, dynamic weapon. I mean, I just think that if you told Brashard Smith, hey, you're gonna play wide receiver, I think he could do almost everything that Debo did, and maybe better. He's really intriguing. You have Riley Leonard sitting there, Ja Joyner, Jabbar Muhammad, Urasek went to Stanford. There's a lot of good players still.
So I think
Nick
we've done a phenomenal job building probably the biggest hole on the defense or on the entire roster, which is the defensive line. Like, we really threw assets at that. So I think, and we've gotten some really good players. I really like what
five of them.
I see a lot of versatility here, and I think that's one of the things that stands out to me so much about what we've drafted so far. So I'm gonna go up to the top if you can for me, please.
And I can pick any position group if you want to see them separated.
Go down just a little bit. Scroll down if you can. Ooh, okay. So I'm going to have to say that this is either going to be between Jackson Slater or Jonas Sanker. So because I do believe they need to start planning ahead, especially on the interior. You do have Matt Hennessy, you do have Nick Sikel, you do have Spencer Burford. Burford will be a free agent next year. Ben Barch will be a free agent next year. I don't know. I would be surprised if Brenda was on the roster heading into 2026. So they do have Drake Nugent. I'm going to go Jackson Slater here.
Great kid.
I believe he's a center. I believe he has upside to be a starter in the league for 8+ years. I'm a big Jackson Slater guy for sure.
That's a good one. That is a good one. All right, let's see who's available in some of these edge rushers. Okay. Got a lot of edge rushers, and a lot of the good ones are gone. Okay, let's see. Defensive line. There's Elijah Roberts, who I do like. Hemingway, I kind of like a lot. Cam Horsley, I think, is a pretty good player. Eric Gregory. There's some really good defensive linemen. Okay, let's go corner. Let's take a look at the corner market here. Let's push this up a little bit. So you got Jabbar Muhammad. Looking for that guy they just – is Frazier still here, or where is he? Is he off the board? Let's see. Ja Frazier. Looks like he's not. It looks like he's off the board here. I thought maybe he would be there. He's not there. All right. So now I do like Carlin Vigors. Let me go to offensive tackle. Caleb Etienne, Holland Pierce, Logan Brown. Okay. Miles Hinton's still there. Let's go tight end. Jackson Hawes went to Yale. Pretty smart. All right, let's take a look at the running backs. The running backs, I got to take a look at the running backs. Well, let me see.
Oh, Blue's right there.
Yeah, Jaden Blue's right there. And so's Brashard Smith, and so's Taj Brooks. I love all these guys. Let me take a look at my linebacker crew here. I do like the linebackers, and I'll be going after some of these linebackers next.
For sure.
I think I'm going. No, that's more me. I think, you know what? I think the Niners are going to look for a running back, and I think that call is right. I think Jaden Blue might be a good pick for them. So I'm going to go Jaden Blue, the Texas running back. He runs in the 4.3s. The trait that Shanahan, Mike, and Kyle have always admired in running backs is pure speed. They love pure speed. And I just think to get a running back that runs in the 4.3s at pick 160. I do like Taj Brooks a lot because I think Taj Brooks, you can finish games with Taj Brooks running between the tackles. But I think Jaden Blue is much more for them. So I'll say 160. We're going Jaden Blue. Now, this would be the biggest jump here because there's a huge fall off. Now we're not picking till pick 227. But you're up right now on pick 227, and I'll give you the top of the board. Let me make this a little. There we go. So any direction you want to go, we've gone, let's say, stack backer, D tackle, wide receiver, D end, D tackle, D end, inside interior offensive line, and running back.
We are missing.
If you're moving Aiyuk, you don't have I guess you have Ayumanor. But receivers late will be definitely another spot that I would look at.
Definitely.
Running backs late. Defensive tackles late.
All right. Scroll down the list a little bit of the BPA.
Yeah, I mean, this guy's good right here. Keandre Lambert-Smith from Auburn, kind of like him. Nick Martin,
like Jake Majors, but we already
Jake Majors. Taj Brooks, Gadsden, the tight end, Stackhouse. This guy right here is an underrated tackle, Carson Vincent.
He looks like an NFL tackle.
I might go with him.
I'll tell you that. He looks like an NFL tackle for sure. Where is Esta Pole?
What position?
Tackle.
Let's see here. There he is right there. Wazoo, Esapole, number 316.
He, to me, is a big-time wild card because he moves so well. And I think, for me, the things that I'm looking for tackles that translate well to the NFL is feet and base. And being able to match, these athletic pass rushers. He, to me, can do that. And he can also get solid pad level in the run game. He is an intriguing prospect to me. Also, another element to him is he's training with former 49ers offensive lineman Jonathan Feliciano, and Feliciano's loves him. So, yeah. So I might save him for my last pick. So let's see what else.
Yeah, he's at 316. So I think you got a reason to believe that
better value.
Yeah. So and then I can go any other position you want to take a look at here.
Let me see tight end really quick.
Tight end, you got Luke Lachey, Aronde Gadsden, Dupre has got great workout numbers. Simon's a good mover. Rivaldo Fairweather's got really long arms.
Have you checked out the UCLA tight end? Someone was telling me about him yesterday. I haven't looked at him, so I don't know. I just didn't know if you had seen him or not.
Maliki Matavo.
Yeah, someone was saying it's like super underrated. These guys should check out. I just didn't know if you had an opinion on him.
I haven't checked him out yet.
Let's go cornerback.
There's a lot of good tight ends, by the way, though. Malik Carr from Michigan State transfer. He's a hell of a player. Cole Taylor started at LSU, transferred to West Virginia. G. Scott's not bad from Ohio State. Another spot you want to look at?
Cornerback.
You got Jordan Hancock. You got Jabbar Muhammad, Mello Dotson, Longer Beam from Rutgers, Fentrell Cypress, Bilal Kone is pretty athletic. Shamari Simmons, Marcus Harris from Cal.
Marcus Harris I would consider, but at that value, he looks like he would be a UDFA, so maybe not draft him. All right. No cornerbacks. I think a guy that I would like later is potentially Upton Stout, but he's not on the board. Quick look at safety.
You have R.J. Mickens, whose dad played at A&M, Ray Mickens Sr. Who else on this list?
I
Mac
like
McWilliams.
as a
Is Mac
special.
McWilliams a safety or a corner? Because I thought he was a corner, but I do like him as a safety. And I love this Robert McDaniel. He's from one of the HBCU schools, Jackson State. This guy led the nation in personal foul penalties, but this guy is just a crusher. I mean, this guy loves to hit, but he led the nation in personal fouls. And Kenny Gallup from Howard is not bad. Also, I saw him.
Let's jump back to linebacker. I want to see or actually go BPA real quick. See how he stacks.
BPA,
because I am considering Nick Martin here.
So BPA, Caden Prather, I guess, is the highest guy up there.
And Nick Martin is in range, right? Like Jaw Joyner. Howard Cross isn't terrible either.
Howard Cross' dad played for the Giants. You remember him? And then this kid Lambert Smith runs in the 4.3s. Linebacker. Let me take a look at the linebacker group because I think the linebacker is where the value is here.
Yeah, I like
Nick Martin, Shamar James. I mean, to me, I'm probably going to take one of these guys. Nick Martin, Shamar James. Dolak's got a ton of tackles. Greg Penn's a great athlete. Benda, Bam Martin Scott. Tamarion Wilson from Central Arkansas. There's a lot of good players here for sure.
So for me, I think it's Gadsden right now, Gadsden or Martin. And I think based on who's ranked higher, Gadsden or Martin in the on the board.
Martin's 206, Gadsden is 219.
So I think if I have to go, if I'm going to try to play the board and pretend like this is the Niners board and that this is their ranking, I would probably go Nick Martin in that instance.
Nick Martin. Okay. I like Nick Martin. Definitely a good player. All right. That's a good one right there. Let me stay at linebacker and see what else is there. Because I do think that this is the one spot where if you can wind up with extra guys, I think this is the spot I want extra guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I do love Chandler Martin. I don't know if he's still on this list. No, he's probably gone here. He's gone. So he's gone. I do love David Benda. Carson Bruner is a really good player who ran in the 4.5s. I didn't think he played to that, though. When I watched his film, I didn't think he played like a 4 or 5 guy. All right, so I love David Benda. He would be not bad. Let me take a look at the edge rushers. You can always use more D-line. Do I see anybody? Strigow. They met with Strigow from Minnesota. He's kind of a try-hard guy. Kari Coleman is an intriguing athlete, but he's got some off-the-field issues that have to be addressed. Okay, I don't see that. Let me see. Defensive line. Hemingway is not bad. Gregory. Nash Hutmacher. Davin Van's got the wrestling background too. There's Jay Toyia that I was telling you about.
Mm-hmm.
How's our front? I guess we got Alexander and we got Omar Norman Lott. So we got 2 guys up front for sure. Whew, gosh, you know what? I know this is going to be crazy, but I'm going with him. I'm going to go with this guy from Morgan State. He was the best player in the HBCU All-Star game. His name's Elijah Williams. He's a defensive lineman. He's 294 pounds, but he played edge rusher, and yet he can play an interior rusher. He's just a monster. He's just a monster. He's just too good. He's too dominating. He was an amazing player. I saw him in the HBCU All-Star game. Elijah Williams from Morgan State. I'm going to take a flyer on him at 249.
Okay, I got to take a look at him.
So you're up with the last pick in the draft. And let's see. Let me see who the best players are here. Quarterback wise, I don't know if you need one, but El Gersma's there. Running back wise, Taj Brooks is there. Raheem Sanders is there. Mario Anderson's there.
Yarns as well. He's more of like a
Marcus Yarns. Jalen White from Georgia Southern's damn good too. Josh Williams from LSU, I think, is kind of underrated. I think I'm here twice. They have Josh Williams and Joshua Williams. There's Marcus Yarns. Marcus Yarns from Delaware with the Michigan helmet. Is there any other position that you want to take a look at?
I think I'm going to go back to kind of what I was talking about. Gadsden's still there. I'm gonna. I think I believe in. Dude, I like Gadsden a lot. I'm gonna go Esapole. Offensive tackle.
They don't have that offensive tackle. There he is, Michigan. There he is.
There he is.
Esapole. All right, we did it. We got through this. Let's save it. Let's see who we'll see what we got here. All right, just to review. What's that?
Do they give like an overall grade on?
Yeah, let's see what our overall grade was. Oh no, it doesn't give us a grade on this one. It just says it shows our selections, and doesn't give us a grade. Then shows us the rest of the draft. But this is basically just to recap. We went Jalen Walker, stack backer / third down edge rusher, special player defensively at 11. Defensive tackle Darius Alexander from Toledo, one of the fast risers in the lead up to the draft, going second round, 43. We went with the Stanford receiver at 75, Alec Ayamanor. We went with Oluwafemi Oladejo, the edge rusher from UCLA, at 100. Omar Norman Lott at 113. Savion Jones, edge rusher / defensive tackle, could be either, 138. Jackson Slater is our first Niner offensive lineman at 147. And there'll be lots of Niner fans who'll be complaining like crazy about this. What? You didn't go offensive line until pick 147? Jadon Blue, fast running back at 160. Nick Martin, undersized but very productive linebacker at 227. Elijah Williams, a flyer on just a potentially great defensive lineman, not sure where he fits. And Esapole, offensive tackle who can move really well from Wazoo. I like it. I also will say this, and I don't know what you think about this, Brad, but to me, I'm anticipating that the 49ers are going to be the team that gets pretty much their pick of the undrafted guys, because I think when they have so many holes that if you're an agent, even if they're not offering the most money, what they're offering is opportunity. If I was an agent, man, I would get, especially on some of these positions that are a little thinner at the tail end of the draft. I want my guy in Santa Clara in July because there's jobs to be had there, and it's kind of like a new world order. They're probably gonna have 20 to 25 new players, and I think since they can't afford free agents or don't want to spend on free agents, I think the undrafted college free agent pool is going to be where they swim.
Yeah, no, I agree. I remember, I think one of our first lives we did after the draft, and we spent the first hour talking about the undrafted free agents because they were able to pull in so many, and they were like, wow, we're actually impressed with some of these guys. I think like Tay Martin was one guy that we both really liked. Now he's not on this team anymore. He's on the Titans, I believe, right now. But yeah, no, I agree. I think the undrafted free agent is a big place where they can target more prospects for sure.
All right, last comment before we bolt for the door, and we're 2 hours in. We're almost 2 hours in, so we're going to end right here. Draft Crush. Matt Barrows does an article every year on his 49er Draft Crush. One year it was Darnell Savage. I have a hard time remembering all of Maddie's. One year it might have been Curtis Strange. Was there an offensive lineman, or maybe Brenton Strange? I forget exactly. He went to New England, I think. If I said to you, Brad Graham, Draft Crush 2025,
damn,
who do you have? It's probably got to be an offensive lineman, I would imagine, since you're a converted offensive lineman or a former offensive lineman.
Surprisingly not.
So I have a Draft Crush too, and I got to get your thoughts on him before we get out of here.
Because Draft Crush doesn't necessarily mean for me that he's going to be like an all-pro. Doesn't necessarily
No,
mean
no.
like
Could
he's
just
gonna
be somebody that you have an odd fascination with.
Teddy Buchanan. I have an odd fascination with Teddy
Really?
Buchanan, and I think that's because I've covered 4 of his games. I sat in his press conferences, and so I kind of got to see how he works. And I really enjoyed watching him, and I just felt like he was everywhere, always. All the games that I covered, he was everywhere, and I really like him a lot. I really like Teddy Buchanan out of Cal, middle linebacker.
Did you say you did talk to him or didn't talk to him?
No, I did. I
Yeah.
sat in, like I said, I think on like 3 of his 3 press conferences of his as well. So
What do you think of him? Where is he fit? He's an inside backer who would play next to Fred.
he's definitely strikes me as a Mike. For sure. He could probably play Sam as well. But yeah, I think he's very talented. I mean, I'm sure you might have saw my tweet. His measurables are almost identical to Fred. Now, I think Fred was a little bit better of an athlete, even though their measurables are pretty similar. And even Teddy has got a little bit better of Fred in some categories. But yeah, no, I'm a big Teddy Buchanan guy. I really.
Let me turn this down because we got some music on it. But this is you, huh? This is your. Did you put this out?
Yeah, I tweeted that.
Yeah, this looks pretty cool, man. Look at this. You got the video of him coming off the bus.
Oh, I didn't edit that. I can't take credit for the edit. I'll just take credit for reposting.
Oh, I got you. This, you know where this guy went to high school. This guy went to my high school. He's a Saying Nations Wildcat.
Yeah, he's a local kid. Went to Sac State for 4 years. Then he transferred to Cal as a 5th-year senior. And
I didn't even know that. He's a Sac State guy?
Yeah, 4 years at Sac State too. And then so he's a 5th-year senior at Cal. Only played 1 year in the ACC, and he went crazy. So I'm not worried about the transfer of like school or like talent, I guess you could say. I'm a big Teddy B guy, man. He just flashed when I covered Cal last year. So
awesome
like
player. Awesome player. My draft crush is a guy that I know you probably put your eyes on at the combine. And that is the he started at Coastal Carolina and transferred to North Carolina, Willie Lampkin.
This is who the chat keeps seeing talking about. I know exactly who he is, but it was funny because I kept seeing the chats.
Tyler here says, if Willie Lampkin goes 1 pick before Larry's pick, the stream is over. So, Brad, this guy's he's an offensive lineman.
5'11".
Did you see him at the combine? Or not the combine, at the Senior Bowl?
I saw him at the Senior Bowl.
And did you see that one clip that he had where he threw the guy down, stepped over him, and then came back and shook his hand? Did you see that?
I did not see that. No, I did not.
I can find that highlight. It's awesome. But what did you think of him? He's a 5'10" offensive lineman.
Again, he fits into that category of like, yeah, your logic would tell you that a 5'11" center probably isn't the most ideal size for a NFL offensive lineman, but again, leverage. He's a doorstop. He's strong. He has the power, and he doesn't move. So I get it. He was one of the risers of that week for sure. So he's like, I think he's a better version of Poe. Jason Poe, was that his name? Who we got as undrafted free agent a couple years ago. So he's like the more polished version of him, in my opinion.
You know what I think? I think the guy might be a fullback.
I could see that. Poe's training to be a fullback as well. There's another guy like Lampkin and Poe who's also training to be a fullback. I can't remember his name though. Escaping me at the moment. The
guy is just a beast. He's just a beast. He wears 53, and I got to show this one. This is now Brad as an offensive lineman. This was nothing. You probably did this a million times, but I love offensive linemen at the end of plays because it tells you a lot about their personality.
Yeah, how you finish.
Because here he is. Here he's 53 right here. Okay, shoots out. Look at him just throw this guy at the end. Get away from me. Just, get down.
Yeah.
So
Finish the
5'10" is pretty short, but I'm thinking he could be the new Juice. What do you think? I mean, Patrick Ricard is the all-pro fullback, Brad. He's an offensive lineman. What do you think of the Niners looking for a lineman like a Willie Lampkin as the new Juice? What do you think? I mean,
Yeah, I could absolutely see that, because to be a good fullback, you got to just be able to block. You got to be able to move well, and Lampkin checks both of those boxes. Is he a threat as a pass catcher? That's something I can't tell you.
Probably not. Probably.
But
he's a wrestler, though. What were you a wrestler?
I was not.
But what do you think of
I
the wrestling
understand
background as far as a value-added deal to an offensive lineman?
Oh, it's a great value add, because it's all about leverage, right?
Yeah.
And when you're 5'11", that's how he's winning. He's winning with leverage, strength, speed, and technique. So as long as he has those, he can check those boxes. To me, you can play at the next level. Sometimes size can be a player's biggest enemy, especially when you're going up against a doorstop. He's got the leverage. So I think he could actually play in the NFL. Like, people were like, oh, it's 5'11", whatever. I was like, well, he held his own all week at the Senior Bowl. So yeah, I could see it for sure.
Michael Moody, I was a wrestler and a lineman. Kevin Allen says Lampkin's short, but he has long arms. How about this?
What's the arm length on him?
Well, get this. I don't have it in front of me, but the arm length on Willie Lampkin was longer. He's got longer arms than Gray Zabel, who went to North Carolina or went to North Dakota State and had a great week. He tested out with longer arms than Zabel, who's 6'5", and this guy's 5'10". So long arms, have an impact. All right, let's hit some supers and we'll bolt for the door. Eric Pierce, what about Eman Worry, first pick? What do you guys think? Jed and Kyle and John's expectations for this year? Love the show. I think the expectations, if they were here, they would say that they're re-cleansing their cap, but their expectations are that they make the playoffs and contend for a Super Bowl. I think that's their expectations. I really do. I think if they were here, they would say as much. I expect them to say that when they do talk. Hey, our expectations haven't changed. We're going to be young. We're going to be a developmental type roster to some degree, but we expect to win. And I think that's what they're going to say. I think that's what they expect. Is it realistic? I don't know how realistic. Well, ask me after the draft. As far as Eman Worry, what do you think of Eman Worry? I mean, the workout numbers were incredible, Brad. Did the tape match the workouts, or is he one of those guys that he's a combine warrior and people should stay away?
I think he has good tape for sure. I haven't done like a deep dive on him, but from what I've seen, you can definitely see how the athletic profile translates to the field, and he seems like he's going to punch you in the face when he's going to tackle you. So he brings some power behind it as well. I don't have a definitive take on Eman Worry just yet, because I haven't done the deep dive, but I do think that I agree with your assessment of the 49ers as well. They're going to expect to win this year, even though regardless of what we might perceive their moves this offseason, I think their expectation is to try to win the NFC West. Yeah.
Compete and win. I think that they're going to say nothing's changed. Joseph Ernberg, I've waited so long for this collab. BP for second. Brock Purdy? You want to trade Brock Purdy for a second round pick? I don't want to trade Brock Purdy, and if I do, I want to get more than a second round pick.
Yeah,
but there you go. And thank you, Joseph, for rooting for this collab, because it's always awesome to rap with Brad. James Vega, member for 32 months. What up, Brad? Krueger, I'm so ready for the NFL draft. Where would you rank Mikael Williams among the other defensive linemen in this draft? Would he be a good fit for the Niners defense? You probably have a better thought on Mikael Williams than I do. To me, there's no question. This is the first guy off the bus. This guy looks the part almost better than almost anybody has ever looked the part. He's 6'5", 260, ripped. He looks the way you want him to look, but I just don't see consistent dominance there. And I don't want to say he's Robert Beal, but there was times where I'm like, is Mikael Williams out there? Which one is he? It's like, so I don't like that. I like guys who come screaming off the film at all times, and he just didn't for me. But what do you think of Mikel?
So I only
Michael,
have a first impression of him, and that was when I was doing my deep dive on Armand Membu, and Membu had him in clamps. So it took me a while to realize. I'm like, oh, that's Mikel Williams. I was like, he's not doing anything against Armand. So I need to do more, but I definitely wasn't impressed on the first watch, at least. But granted, he was going up against probably the best offensive lineman in this class.
Yeah, Membu looks so good. He really does look good.
He's so good. Like
he looks good.
He's really good. Yeah,
he's dominant. Missouri gets some dudes, and there's no question he's one of them. Jonathan says, any chance Kyle reconsiders assembling his O-line from the scrap heap, 5th and 6th rounders, mid free agents? If by some miracle we cut Brendel, would Drake Nugent be a serviceable center? I personally think that Drake Nugent is going to be a serviceable center at some point. I know he's a little underpowered, but I think he's a really good player. He's diligent. I know he's working towards it. I think Nugent's going to be pretty decent.
I agree. I think Nugent's.
As far as Kyle reassembling the O-line, I don't know about that.
I could see him probably targeting 4th through 7 offensive linemen, maybe a 3rd rounder. We'll see. I don't know. I think the only way they take O-line early is if Campbell or Membo is there.
Yeah. And do you like Nugent?
I do.
Yeah, I do.
He has upside for sure.
Yeah. He was good at Stanford, and then he went to Michigan. He had a really good year there. I talked to him a couple times in the locker room. His head screwed on straight. He knew he's getting a redshirt year to improve, and he was really intent on improving. He didn't waste any reps in practice. I expect him to fire a pretty good effort this summer. LD Studios, my two faves together. Now I need Dave and Grant. Yeah, something tells me Dave and Grant will not be streaming together today. I'm not really sure when you're going to be able to see the Dave and Grant show, but I don't think it's. Wait a second. I just got a report.
People would probably pay for that.
Wait a second. Hell is freezing over. So yes, maybe today. Ernest B. Worried says, "How about a couple of pick swaps and 2 6th-round picks for Aiyuk with the Browns? 43 for 33 and 67 for 100." You know what? I think that's the kind of creative deal that could come together in the 11th hour. Because I think the Browns want Aiyuk, and I think the Niners want to get out from underneath that money. It's just a matter of can they get together on a deal, and I think they're motivated to get together on a deal. So we'll see. That's a good idea.
I really like your trade scenario of who was it, Newsome and 2 6. I would love that.
Which Brad, isn't it funny that you said you love that because you know ball, I know ball, but man, and I know if that trade comes down in 10 minutes. Oh, my God, the people are pissed, right? Because they're going to view 6th as nothing, and they're going to view Newsome as nothing, and you gave away our great receiver, who they're not going to acknowledge is not the same player after the injury, for nothing. And in reality, I think you might be able to get out of that Newsome. You might be able to get Bryce Huff for one of those 6ths, and you might be able to get a pretty good player, as you saw here in our mock in round 6. So I kind of think that might be a lot better than people think.
Well, and I think it's beauty's in the eye of the beholder, right? Because 49ers got a 5th-round pick for Debo, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. The 49ers got a 5th for Debo? Let's go. And they took the whole contract. People are like, oh, my God, they only got a 5th for Debo? I was like, well, you have to take into account they took his contract on. That was like the whole point. You did eat the dead cat, but it's the same concept with the Aiyuk. You're not trading necessarily for – like we're trying to get as much value. We're trying to move his contract. That's the motivation.
Relief is the big motivation, and it's Jed's money. And my guess is they're going to go get it. Joshua Swan, shout out from Billings, Montana. This is the best collab. Thank you, Joshua. Appreciate you. Joshua would throw this one. He says, "MT, love to both you. Thanks for all the updates."
Thank you, Joshua.
Rafael Rodriguez in the house. He says, do you think the Niners going cornerback 1st round would be a safer pick instead of being a safer pick of being a bust instead of a D-line? I don't think that there's a safer pick, but I will say this. I'm a believer, and I talked to Trent Baalke one time about this. It's like the only time Trent Baalke and I ever agreed on anything, is that I'm a believer, Brad, that you start this process by watching the games. Okay, you watch the games. You go and find out who's good. Then after you figure out who's good by watching the games, then go arm length and all the investigative stuff.
Correct.
And
100%.
what I like is when you can wed the guy who's great in the games with the guy who's got the great workout numbers, then you really got something. Then you've got Aldon Smith. Then you've got Jerry Rice. And then the only way you're going to screw up is if that player has a problem off the field, like Aldon had. But I'm just saying, I like to marry, and when I bring this up because it's all about safe picks. Like if you look at the failure rate of these prospects, they fail. They fail at a high rate.
Yeah.
Why do they fail? And then they fail because of injury and all these other reasons. So I'm looking for a great football player who's also tested as a great athlete. And to me, like Jedi Barron from Texas is one of the safest picks in this whole draft because he does test really, really highly as an athlete, but he also played great, incredible football as a player, as a nickel, as a corner, inside, outside. He can do it all. So in a lot of ways, I think, that's a very safe pick, Jedi Barron. But I wouldn't say a corner is safer than a D lineman. Right. It's really more about the person's personal habits and all that kind of thing.
I agree. I think tape is number one, and then you use measurables, and then the interview process is huge. Try to figure out the intangible.
Yes.
And that all supplements the film. And if it all ties together and you can hit all three, then you probably got a really good football player.
Yeah, no question. Gary Radnich, can we get a sponsor to get Gary on at least once? I will reach out to Gary. I will reach out. I know he's very private, but I will reach out to Gary. Jason Lutz, is there a player worth trading up for if they begin to fall towards 11? Is there anyone worth trading back into round 1 if they slide late first, early second? Oh, these are good questions. As far as a player worth trading up for if they begin to fall towards 11, yeah, I think it would be Abdul Carter, right? If Abdul Carter or is Mason Graham on that list for you? What do you think?
I do. I like Mason Graham. I think if he's getting in that 8 range, 7 or 8, I would pick up the phone and see what it costs. I wouldn't, throw my whole draft away. But if the Saints were looking to drop back for a reasonable price, or the Panthers, I would definitely have the conversation.
How about the back of the first? Is there a guy that you're thinking could be there that would make you want to, go up and make a move? To me, it's still about volume in this draft, so I don't see myself jumping up. But to me, it's Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant. If Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant are not there, or there, I should say, and we get to pick like 28, 29, I'd want to trade up just to see if I could get them, and also just to keep them away from Philly and Kansas City.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if the 49ers are like, you know what, we want to plug in that left hole or the left guard hole with an offensive tackle in like the 30, 31, 32, I would be okay with going up and getting Zabel. I really do like him a lot. But
yeah,
I think that's less likely that they would do that for sure. And they just either stay pat. They just feel like they're going to trade back and acquire. They're going to take as many shots as they can.
Do you understand the reference here? Gary Radnich throws in $2 to say Deerfield Academy, founded in 1797 by John Williams. Do you know why he's bringing up Deerfield Academy?
No.
Because the receiver that went to Stanford that we just took in our mock draft went to college, went to high school, Brad, at Deerfield Academy, which is like going to Phillips Exeter, or it's in Mass. It's a private boarding school in Mass that you go. It's Exeter. You know what I'm saying?
Is it a school you pay like $20,000 a year to go to? One of those kinds.
Probably first semester is probably more like probably closer to 100,000. Tony B says, Krug, I've seen the light on Willie Lampkin. Omarion Hampton owes him a ton of money. Yes, seriously. And Silent says, those ads, Brad and Krueger, men of culture. Oh, there you go. Wait a second. I didn't throw that in there. There we go. Gary Schetzel, what about us getting Hunter? We get a DB and a wide receiver. I think he's a full-time DB who's going to moonlight as a wide receiver, like maybe 5 or 6 snaps a game. Nobody will ever play corner and wide receiver in the NFL full-time, but I think he's a corner who you could put him in 3 wide situations or 4 wides every now and then. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like a gadget guy.
He's not a full-time receiver. My ball, Zach Ertz, is brought to you by El Puku LYL Pickle. Oh, pig in a pickle. Look at you. Look at you. I saw that. So I'm working there. And Carlo says, will Kyle draft Cam Scatabo? Kyle loves running backs early. I'll say this, though. Niner fans, this is the one area where you guys got to get off Shanahan. I understand Trey Sermon. I understand Joe Williams. I understand Ty Davis Price. They went with the wrong. It's not that they draft a running back in the 2nd or 3rd round. It's they drafting the wrong running backs.
Drafted the wrong running backs.
If they get to round 2 and they go Travion Henderson, I'm fine. They get to round 2 and they go Quinshon Judkins, I'm fine. I'm gonna have a problem if they draft a bad running back. But a dominating running back, I actually think running back is the need that's the quiet need. You don't have Mason. Garendo's really raw. McCaffrey's hurt and older. Everything's predicated on your run game. You got to have a serious runner. I love R.J. Harvey. I love Kyle Monangai. I love Taj Brooks. I love Brashard Smith. There's a bunch of guys after the first round or after the first couple days. But I really, really, really like those running backs. But Cam Scatabo, last thought.
I don't know if Kyle likes him. I don't know. I like him. I think his contact balance is insane. And he's clearly a big time player. I just don't know if Kyle would like him. But you never know.
That's going to do it for us. Brad, tell people when you're going live next and where they can find you. I know you're all over social media, but where's the best place if people want to? They want to follow Brad Graham. They want to get everything that the SF Niners puts out.
Well, you can see that's my personal handle. If you want to follow me on X, the SF Niners, pretty much anywhere you get social media content, YouTube, all that good stuff, we'll be there.
Thanks to Brad. Sorry this went so long.
How dare you, Larry?
I know, seriously. We don't get together much, but when we do, we talk for hours. But anyway,
we could probably go for another 2 hours too.
Gosh. Kev just said, "Hey, just gave me a note. Brad is absolutely needs to go." I'm like, all right. That's gonna do it for us. Thanks, everybody. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.